Okay, so hopefully, excuse me, this time is a charm. My name is Deanne Battle. Welcome to the Composite. I've been attempting to get season 2, episode 9 up and running. So here we are. It was just telling me my internet connection wasn't cooperating. All right. So it's been a while. I did do an episode last week. But I'm glad to be back. So thank you for joining me. Thanks to anybody who ends up watching the playback. Okay, so here's what we're going to do this evening. Things feel very heavy, extremely heavy. Geopolitics are heavy. I kind of danced around that a bit last episode. But pop culture is really heavy now too. And so there are things that I want to discuss, things that I have questions about, but I feel, to be honest, I feel a little out of my depth. Whether I'm thinking about, again, the ongoing war, conflict, tragedy happening in the Middle East, whether it's entertainment, right? There's a situation with Keke Palmer. There's a situation with Diddy. There's a situation with Will Smith. It's just like Black Hollywood is on fire right now. I don't know why. I don't know if it's possibly related to the strike, in terms of, people like, okay, these are things that, may or may not have happened. And, I'm not putting any judgment on that, but obviously I'm not involved in the situation, so I can't say definitively yay or nay. But it's just kind of like, okay, lawsuits are always a way to generate funds, if we're being honest. So there's that. Or if it's something else, I was talking to a friend and she said it just feels like everybody's being exposed right now. And so I would have to agree with her, like everything is being exposed. And so that's really heavy energy. And so what does that mean for what I'm trying to do with this show, right? Because I want to be able to comment on it, but to a certain extent, am I quote unquote qualified to really give judgment? And so that doesn't mean I won't, but, I am thinking about what role do I play in that, in terms of being a talking head. So let's see how we do this. All right. You can travel with me a bit. I think they just dropped off my Chinese food. Hold on. Oh, yes, indeed. The stars are aligned. Okay. So that's exciting. All right. So I got my Chinese food and my homemade iced tea. I don't know what it is about Chinese food restaurants, but the homemade iced tea is always one of my favorite things on the menu. It is banging. You know what I mean? Like if they do it right, where it's just sweet enough before it gets too sweet, and they put it in these. Ta-da. Amazing. So how have I been doing? So yes, I did order Chinese food tonight. I've been really good, y'all. I've been eating salads every single day, and I lost a little bit of weight. So I'm proud of myself. But I think sometimes like when it's been a few weeks, you kind of hit a wall in terms of like, okay, I'm eating the same thing again and again. And it just gets to be unsatisfying at a certain point. And so I'll go back to salad, but it's just like, I was like, okay, I'm either having a sandwich or some Chinese food. So I do have the Chinese food, which I'll save for later after this broadcast. But the dog is looking at the iced tea. No, my friend, the iced tea is for me. I will take a swig of this. Pardon if my voice is a little phlegmy. I don't know if it's I'm coming down with something or is it allergies. We shall see as the weekend progresses. Happy pre-Thanksgiving festivities, folks. If you celebrate, hopefully, sorry, I gotta do this with two hands. Goodness. Hopefully you've got something good coming up. Sorry, not the most professional thing, but I've had a hankering for this ever since I ordered it like an hour ago. Good stuff. And then you know what I like to do? After I've had 2 or 3 swigs, I like to put it in the freezer because then it gets a little icicles on the top. And then it's especially refreshing. Okay, so that's what we're working with. So yeah, I do, want to talk about what everybody else is talking about. But, I'm also aware that, energies are heavy now. And, whatever is clearing out of our system as a collective world, as a collective society, shit is thick. It's very thick. All right. So what I've done is, a couple of episodes ago, I pulled some cards just to see what I could see. And so I think I will do that again, right? So I've got, yet again, my Spirit of the Animals Oracle deck and Keepers of the Light deck. And then I have my tarot cards, but I forgot what the official name is of them. But what I like about these tarot cards is that they have, they're based on the Rider Waite, but they have the black interpretations. But this deck has been through a lot. It's, kind of beat up. So, but what I wanted to ask, our ancestors, our spirit guides, and the Orisha, I wanted to ask them, what energy do we need to clear out? So I've already shuffled the cards and everything and cut them, but I didn't do anything else. So it's just, I'll just see what happens, see what comes out here. Let's do that. Okay. So, what energy do we need to clear out by the end of the year? What energy do we need to clear out by the end of the year here? Energy do we need to clear out by the end of the year here? Energies do we need to clear out by the end of the year? Energies, ooh, okay. All right. So we got one Spirit of the Animals card. I'll show you I'll go through the oracle cards and then I'll do the tarot. All right. So now this deck. All right. Energy before the end of the year. Need to clear out. Ooh, before the end of the year. Okay. Thank you. One of my neighbors walking by. Okay, so for the Spirit of the Animals card, I got the white stag, and it's associated with being a protector. And the card says, you are an old soul. Your best friend is nature. Use your intuition to take you where you want to go. Awaken to the powerful force within you. You are meant to create blessings within with your magic. Okay. So, just thinking about oracle cards giving us like general vibes, energy. It seems like one thing to keep in mind here is that, perhaps one of the energies that needs to be cleared out is like that self-doubt, that lack of listening to your intuition, right? So, you know, maybe that's something to think about, right? Maybe we aren't listening to our intuition, and that's why, you know, there are flare-ups and, you know, hot spots, for lack of a better word, in terms of, you know, geopolitics, in terms of all of these entertainers being potentially exposed and things like that, right? So are we not listening to our intuition about things? Okay, and this other card here from Keeper of the Light Tarot, right, is Freya, right? And now Freya is associated with phases and cycles. Okay, and it says there's a beginning within every ending. Illusions are revealed and released. So I think that these two cards, funnily enough, relate to each other quite well, right? On one hand, you know, are we in this predicament, right, because we're not using our intuition, and do we have to be honest with ourselves in terms of what is an illusion, right? What needs to be, you know, swept away. Okay, so that is, those are the oracle cards. Pardon me. I do think I'm getting a bit of a cold or something. All right, now, I've got my tarot cards here, right? So I'm just going to ask them the same questions. And so, you know, as I said, like, you know, one of the last times that I did this, for me, the oracle cards just kind of give us the backdrop, or, you know, the vibe of you know, a general theme. And then the tarot is a little bit more specific. Okay, so what energy needs to be cleared out before the end of the year here? Okay, so 1, thank you. 2. Okay, thank you. And 3, thank you. Oh, wow, this is interesting. All right. So I'll show the 3 cards in the order that they came out, and then we'll walk through it. Okay, so the first card that came through was the Page of Wands. The second that came through was the 9 of Wands. And the third one that came through was the 5 of Swords in reverse. Okay. Right. So how do we read this? Right. So Page of Wands, right? Pages, my understanding is, represent an immature energy, right? That's being presented, can possibly, you know, be a messenger of some sort. Wands are related to, you know, passion, creativity, fire, within you, things like that, right? Now, the 9 of Wands, that is our wounded warrior, right? So it represents a level of kind of wariness, but also resilience, right? It's like, as you can see, right? This person's like, I'm still here, right? Even though I'm guarded, I'm still standing. Excuse me. And 5s in general have to do with conflict, but here the 5 of Swords is generally like conflict in terms of being competitive, wanting to win at any costs. But notice that it's reverse, right? So let me look that up quickly. I mean, I have a sense of what it means. I think 5 of Swords in reverse would be like trying to come to a resolution, or maybe not being competitive. Hold on a second. 5 of Swords reversed. So it says here, the 5 of Swords reversed suggests that after a period of conflict, you are ready to move forward and create positive change. Bring your energy back within and ground yourself. Okay. Yeah. Right. So the way that I read this is, right, we're thinking about energy that needs to be cleared. The oracle cards are telling us go ahead and use your intuition to protect yourself, right? To clear away illusion. And then, right, there is the seed, right? There's an immature seed of a passion or a creativity, but we've maybe got to let our guard down, right? Putting these two together, right? We've got maybe have to let go of conflict. So that's interesting because I'm like, oh, there's a bunch of shit going on across the world right now. What do we need to like clear out? And it's like, yeah, we've got to clear out the fight, right? We've got to clear away the distrust, let me see something here. The competition, right? The need to always be right and win. Okay. And so I think all of these cards, the Oracle cards and the Tarot cards put together, maybe are calling for a level of humility, perhaps that humanity does not possess at the moment. So maybe that's our problem. I don't know. Okay, so excuse me. Goodness. Okay, so that did not go well. Pardon me. Well, you can't say I don't keep it real. Oh, Lord. Okay. All right. I'm not going to turn the light on in here. It was just like 15 minutes before I went live. And start to feel very funny. All right. But yes, so humility and the ability to let go of conflict. Right? When is enough enough? When do we let it go? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. In terms of war and conflict stuff, I sometimes will watch people that are other pundits on YouTube and whatnot. And what's interesting to me is a lot of them, are saying, pardon me, that Ukraine is down pretty bad right now because they, although they had, some military gains this year, right, in terms of particular fights and battles and whatnot, the problem now is a war of attrition, right? Winter is coming. There is significant damage to their power grids. A couple of people that I watched, they were like, well, even if Russia doesn't even really do anything to advance, at this point, they can just wait them out until the spring. And so I just wonder what that means in terms of how the alliances are aligned and whatnot, because of, what's happening in the Middle East. That we can, as the United States, send more weapons and whatnot, but it's tough, right? Because I think one of the reasons that Russia and Ukraine are not negotiating, right? Because even though it's like a David and Goliath situation, at the end of the day, if the United States is backing Ukraine, there's really, and if I was them, I'd probably feel the same way, right? There's no motivation to negotiate if the U.S. is just writing you a blank check at this point. But I don't know how much longer that can continue, because we're also writing Israel blank checks. And again, another situation where they are one country, in a generally, we'll admit, right, a generally hostile area to Israelis, for a variety of reasons. But is there the impetus to negotiate with Hamas or with any other hostile actors if at the end of the day they know that the United States is just going to back whatever they do. But as a U.S. citizen, right, what am I thinking about, right? I'm prioritizing me and mine. And I know that sounds bad, but I teach in New York City, and the budget cuts are closing the libraries on the weekend, right? So, how are those things related? They're not directly related. But what we're seeing at the municipal level and at the national level is that we're being told that there's not enough money to make things run. And, as an educator, and I know how, like, when I was a kid, the library was a sanctuary for me, right? That was where I could go, to be safe when I was getting picked on at school, right? Like, that was where I could go to other worlds in different books that I was reading. So I feel badly for those kids that were like me, not to be able to have that space on the weekends. And there are other cuts that Mayor Adams is making as well. I live in Pennsylvania, but, I'm not sure if there are any current cuts coming up. I can imagine that there will be at the municipal level, but it just feels like, right? And you could say, you're totally wrong about this, but it just feels like politicians always prioritize outside of home, right? And, home is not working. So while, we don't want people to, right, be put out with their backs against the wall, we don't want them to be in bad situations, we've got to get to a point where eventually we take care of home, right? In terms of infrastructure, in terms of education, which, that's the other place where Mayor Adams is making cuts. I think he's making a $1 billion cut to public schools, right? I mean, public school was underfunded when I went, when I was a kid. And just to feel like, wow, things are more expensive now. Maybe you have more children in the public school system. I would assume so. But they're going to spend less money. It's not good. What is the glue that holds us together as a society? Like, how do we advance? How do we move forward? And I don't think we move forward by always looking outward. We do need to look outward, but if the focus is always outward, like, for instance, Gavin Newsom had the APEC conference come to San Francisco, and then President Biden came and met with President Xi of China. And, the Bay Area, particularly San Francisco, has a really pronounced homelessness crisis. And they cleared out all the homeless people. They, cleaned it up with bleach and stuff, and they made it look pretty. But it's just like, well, why do those homeless people have to live like that? Why can't you give them the dignity to take care of them outside of, dignitaries coming into town? Why do the locals have to live like that with like human feces and stuff on the street? Like, why don't you have the dignity, give them the respect of taking care of them, right? But irrespective of like who's coming to town. But I feel like that situation is very emblematic of what we do as a country, right? You clean up the shit when we have visitors and guests, but then when they go away, it's shitty again. And then on top of that, if we're going to stay on California for a second here, the Oakland A's are leaving Oakland. They're going to Las Vegas. That's terrible. When your city, when you lose an athletic team, like, you're losing a tax base, you're losing revenue. And I can imagine if I were from Oakland, that would be demoralizing. But, again, it's just showing that here it feels like a majority of the time, I would say for me, it's really felt this way for like the last year and a half. Like a lot of stuff is really crumbling, and there's just at a municipal, state, and federal level, it just, where is the urgency? Like, how bad does it have to get before you all, again, prioritize Americans and American needs? We're needy. We need a lot of stuff here. And not to the degree that someone would in a developing country, but I feel like we're coasting off of a name and we're not at this point backing it up. And that's a really terrible place to be. How did I get on that tangent? Yeah, because we're talking about, clearing out energy, right? And, right, this card here, right? Revealing illusions and ending cycles, right? So how do we end this cycle of, well, part of it is bribery, right? Because that's a huge thing that motivates politicians, bribery, so that dictates a lot of their priorities. But also this doubling and tripling down, right? I said this one thing, and even though it's like dead wrong at this point, I can't take it back, or I don't want to take it back. So I don't know what to do with that. I had YouTube on in the background, excuse me. So because of my commute, and because, sometimes like I just need something in the background while I'm like doing work to keep me company. Pardon me. I might hop off in a few minutes here. I don't know what is going on with my nose. But, I'll have things on in the background. And so I had the story on in the background. The, singer / model, Cassie, she dated Diddy for like 10 years. And she's suing him. Now, it's interesting because the first time that I saw the story, they said she was suing him for $30 million. But then now today people are like, oh, well, it's for an undisclosed amount. So I don't know where people are getting the $30 million number from. But yeah, she's the allegations, I'm not going to lie. Like, so I actually, so my first job out of college, I'm laughing because I remember the woman told me the story. I worked with a woman who, this was just her. She claimed that she went to college with Puff. Like she went to Howard, I believe. And she would say how he would promote these parties and he would collect the money, right? So, we're going to have a party, but we need money for alcohol and a DJ and all this stuff. And he would collect the money and then he would bounce, like he would leave town for a couple of weeks. And so, this was in the, early 2000s, like when I graduated from college. And so she was just like, yeah, Puff, we were calling Puffy at the time. And she was like, Puffy ain't shit. Like, so these are the stories that she used to tell of like, kind of seeing him, navigate and move. And being from New York, here and there, I would hear stuff that wasn't particularly flattering. But even with all of that being the case, Cassie has a 35-page court document with the allegations of the lawsuit. And I have to say, if you haven't either, heard what the charges are or, seen the document, this is explosive. It's shocking. And again, like, I haven't heard the most flattering things about him to begin with. And I remember when he did the show Making the Band, and I'm laughing not because of the Cassie situation, but I'm laughing because of what an asshole he was on that show, right? Like, if any of y'all that remember that show, he made them walk across the Brooklyn Bridge to Junior's. Now, Junior's was the bomb back in the day, but he made them walk across the Brooklyn Bridge from where they were in Manhattan. So they had to walk across the Brooklyn Bridge and come back and bring him cheesecake. And so he was hazing the hell out of those folks. But they wanted to be a band of, like, rappers and singers and stuff like that. But he was very arrogant. He was very dismissive. And he just had them do all of these, like, mind game things. And so even with all of that being the case, the stuff that Cassie is talking about, like sex trafficking and this is social media. I don't even know what you can say now, so I'm not going to go into any details. But I was like, yo, what is this? This is out of control. I mean, here's the thing. People can say, oh, she's lying. But it's pretty detailed, number one. Number two, I mean, given the fact that he's such a powerful person, I think if you're a lawyer, you would want to be very judicious about whether or not you would take a case like that, right? So she has to have some level of receipts. But I would argue that of all of those allegations that she's making, even if one of those things is true, it's that horrible. Like, she makes him sound like the devil. Like, it's terrible, terrible. And so I was just shocked when I heard that. Part of me is wondering, like, well, it seems like a while to wait. So I'm wondering about that. Were there any threats involved? I'm wondering, how is he going to respond? But more than anything else, I'm wondering how the entertainment industry, especially the Black sector of it, how they're going to respond. Because if any of this is true, I think it changes a lot, in terms of, can you operate in hip hop with impunity, right? What types of things are people being exposed to, or are people willing to expose themselves to in order to get put on to the industry? But, and I'll admit, you hear stuff, but, like, I'm pretty, naive about some of that. But yeah, that case is, wow. That's a lot to take in. Very disturbing. Other things I want to talk about? No, I think I'm going to wrap up. My sinuses are not necessarily cooperating, but I'm glad I was able to get this episode in for you. And hopefully, the cards are not too esoteric for people. I think they do a good job of grounding the discussion a little bit. All right. And so thank you for joining me, or thank you for watching the playback. Again, my name is Deanne Battle, and this has been the Composite, Season 2, Episode 9. All right. Have a good night. Oops.